Greetings, it's a new day. The painting I did in my first video is completely dry. You can see I took off the tape and I have this nice what I called fractured fun border. Something different than just straight borders. That's what California Vibe Watercolor Portraiture is all about. Playing. So what I'm going to do, as promised, is I'm going to finish this painting. Like I said, I've got 75% of it done. By the way, I'll be working with my my wonderful cat's tongue. And, oh look, I got a little paint on me. How about that? How could that have happened? So I'm going to finish this. So without further ado, let me do it. I want to get the hair darker. So I'm going to go to, remember, I'm working with a limited palette. One warm red, one cool red, a yellow, phthalo blue, green shade, cerulean, and turquoise. So I'm going to add a little bit of, remember, with a limited palette of primary colors, you can mix other colors. So I've made a beautiful dark purple. Let me get a little more red in there. Okay, and that's going to go about right down to there. Then the hair gets a little bit lighter. Notice I like to dance the brush, move it around, and also it gives me that motion, mimics the curls and the highlights in her hair. I just love that head of hair she's got. You'll see me in later videos because, again, I am going to start marketing at affordable prices. California Vibe Watercolor Portraiture videos. How do you do this? So, it's hard to talk and paint at the same time. Have you ever noticed that? Now, the hairs on the outside are light. You know, those little smaller hairs that are showing. So I'm just barely touching the paper with the point of my cat's tongue. And I want to keep those nice and light. They don't want to be too dark because really the light behind her is kind of eating into the hair. It's backlighting, and that's what happens. Okay, hey, let's just put in some butter. Remember I talked about paint consistencies. And in my future videos, I'll be going into all of this. If you don't understand certain terms in this video is not a straight ahead how-to. That will be in my later productions that I'll be having. And I'm setting up a website, a very easy website, so you can log on and I'll have lessons that will help you on your journey to do my California Vibe style. Okay, thirsty brush again. Remember I talked about that in the first video. I want to pull off some paint. That was a little too dark. I don't pat it with a paper towel or anything. I just don't like that. It softens and mushes up the painting. You know what? I need some green too. Again, I'm working with primary, so I'm not showing the palette on this one. I want you to concentrate on the painting. So I'll verbally explain what I'm doing. So I'm mixing up my opera, and then I'm going to put some phthalo into it. Whoops, wait a minute. Gee, I made a mistake. How about that? I thought I'd never make mistakes. Wrong. That's not going to make green. What's going to make green is yellow. That would help to start out with the right colors. Now I can put in some phthalo. There we go. There we go. Now look, I'm going to segue. I'm going to go from kind of the bluish purple to green. And I like to do that. It's always nice to put a color next to another color in the color wheel, those are called analogous colors. So analogous colors work really well together. And you know, that's the type of thing I'll be talking about when I get my my website up and running and loaded with videos that you can learn from. I'm going to pop a little in there, remember? If you're going to have some color in one spot, distribute it in other spots. It keeps your color unity going. Okay, now the top of her head is not as dark, so I'm using, this is some of that beautiful turquoise. And turquoise is not too dark no matter how thick you put it on. It's just a light color. So now I'm taking, instead of a thirsty brush, I'm taking a wet brush and just a very, very light, tea-light consistency. I'll be talking about that a lot too in my videos. Tea-light consistency, because I do have to follow the value pattern. Okay. Hey, I'm going to take some, here we go again, butter paint consistencies. I'm going to pop some of that in the really dark areas of the hair. A little there. Okay, I think that's enough. So I'm going to finish up. Remember I talked about the front of her hair. And I'm going to take a really nice warm red, a fire engine red, and that's usually the CAD reds. I'm cleaning my brush like the devil because I don't want that CAD to get too dirty with the previous, paint that I had on. So now we're putting in the red. I'm going to pop a little red in here too. There. Let's see how that travels around. If I don't like it, I can always fix it later. And then I'm going to go to my yellow again. And this is a little too heavy, so again with a wet, dry, thirsty brush, I can take some of that off. Okay, I'm going to take some more off. I don't like that red, but I don't panic. Oh, that's a terrible color. I better pat it with a paper towel. Remember, I don't like doing that. I just go in there and take it off. As long as your paint is still wet, easy to take it off. No big deal. And I'm still not happy with this. Well, I'm really going to take some off now. I'm not following the value pattern very well. As you paint, you can't constantly have to monitor yourself. I think I want a little green in there. And I definitely want some yellow. And right now, the paint's mixing because the hair, these areas of hair are still quite wet. So they're mixing on the paper. You know what? I'm just going to bring some of this green down. That looks good. As you're painting, the painting will dictate some of the things you need to do, and the painting speaks to you. And what it's saying to me is, David, in the front here you had red, but what the heck? Let's get some little yellow in there. And that will unify with the yellow I've got in the background. So that works quite well. And it's telling me to put a little phthalo here. And she's got some wisps of hair on her going across her forehead here. So I'm just using the tip of my brush to get some of that in. We can even soften that edge. Edges are so important. I'll be talking about those in future videos. So I think that looks good. Now it's time to do the hair. No, not the hair. I'm done with the hair. Hard to paint and talk at the same time. No, what I'm going to do now is let's get the ear going. And we have the ear canal. We have those darker areas, and it's part of the ear structure. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the parts of the ear are called. I don't care. I just want to see it and paint it. So here we go. I'm going to go in there. Well, I do know this is the ear canal, and it's really dark. So I'm going to go in there There's the ear canal. I think I'll add a little more green, and I'll show you where I'm going to put that darker value green, and this is going to be the consistency of cream. This part of the ear that's darker, just below the tip of the top of the ear, and then that comes down. It swings around in a nice arc like this. It continues to be fairly dark. It doesn't have to be painted perfectly, but you do want to follow the value pattern. So I'm going to do that. And this comes around. Now I'm going to add a little green to my violet. There we go. That looks good. Okay. So there is the ear. And then behind the ear, I see just a little bit. I don't want to go into that green. Just a few more hairs. A few more. There we go. And this is a little too dark, so with a thirsty brush, see, it's still wet. It's easy for me to take off paint. And like I said, I use Sennelier. It's a honey-based paint. It is real good for it allows you to take paint off because that honey base, it doesn't attach to the fibers of your watercolor paper quite as strong as non-honey base paint. Still working on this ear. Want to get the outside just a little lighter, and then I can come back to that. You know, you got to be careful. You can start fooling around and get stuck on one part of the painting, and I don't want to do that. I'll come back to that. And even when it gets just bone dry, I know that I can still take off paint, repaint areas. I'll be in good shape. It's nice to have some painting mileage behind you, because then you learn things, tricks, things that you know you can do, and you needn't panic if it's not right the first time. Okay, now it's time to go into the eyes. I love eyes. You know what? I'm going to give her dark green eyes. So let me get some yellow, and of course some more phthalo. This is going to really be on the phthalo side. Now I've got to hold the paper down and just go in there very carefully. A little bit of dark there. This is the pupil. A little dark here. And then I'm going to clean my brush. I don't have too much water, but it's still a wet brush. And I'm going to pull the eye down so it gets a little bit lighter, and as we go to the bottom, as we get into the iris. I titled this painting Eyes Right. No. Well, from the viewer's perspective, it's from her perspective, eyes right. From our perspective, eyes left. I'm going to get some more purple. I want to do the crease. There's the crease in her upper eyelid, the lower crease, or actually the end of the eyelid, and then actually this is the crease. And as I come out, I'm going to, since we do have green at the bridge of the nose, I'm going to segue from the purple to green, and that kind of swings around like that. So look, it doesn't take much. That's almost an eye. Looks like an eye. So my feeling is, don't paint more than you have to. And You know the old saying, and I firmly believe it, watercolor is like golf. You win with the least amount of paint. Or the least, I should say this, no, that's not right. You win with the least amount of strokes. There, that's a better golf analogy, isn't it? Okay, so there's an eyebrow. I'm not going to get too fancy with colors. You know, sometimes you can use too many colors, and that's not good. And I do that, and I slap myself silly when I do that because it's not a good deal. Okay, and then again, let's go to green. Let's darken this up a little bit. Okay, bring some of this value right into the eye. Okay, I'm going to have just a little bit of purple against the bridge of the nose. And I'm going to lighten this up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to come back to the eye, but I've learned through the years that be patient, let things dry before you go back into them. Otherwise, you have a tendency to create mush. I like my paintings to be nice and strong, high def, if you will, not much. Oh, I'm liking that orange. I'm liking that a lot. Okay, now here, that's a little darker. That's not bad. You know, I could go in and paint more and more, and I'm thinking, no, David, please don't do it. I want to win this game. It's like golf. Least amount of strokes. You win the game. Come down. I want to make it a little darker here where the hair is. See, I'm pulling off some paint. It's bone dry, but look how easy it comes off. No big deal. Hey, let's create her jawline. Let's define that a bit more. So I'm going to take green again. I want to distribute some of this green. Oh, and I better make sure when I do pat with a paper towel, I do it very carefully and slowly. No, see, I rushed it. Well, that's a good example. See, I made a mistake. I rushed it, and that's exactly what I'm saying. You have to be patient. Don't rush things. I'll come back to that. That is what I have to do. Okay. Let's get a little more yellow reflecting, because like I said, she's in a yellow environment. So now I've got to darken. I'm going to make some more purple. And I've got to darken that shadow that her nose is casting above her mouth. So I'm getting some purple mixed up on my palette. And here we go. And this is dry. I want to make sure it's dry, otherwise I'm going to get mush. Just a little more red. A little bit more red. I don't want it too deep purple. There we go. And that swings around. Goes right into the nostril area. And then that shadow does get a little bit lighter on the outside here. There we go. I don't want this too dark. And that shadow comes around the side of her nose like this. She's got a little shadow below the tip of her nose. Actually, you know what I could do? I could put a little bit of yellow. Just a little bit like that, lighten that up. And you saw me in the beginning, I was painting fairly fast, but once you get to the details, you really have to start to slow down. Because these are facial features. And what are we most sensitive to when we look at our fellow human beings? It's the eye, it's the features. Starting with the eyes, of course, but also don't forget, we all have different mouths and noses and ears, so we're very sensitive to that. And we observe those things, even though we may not be conscious of it, but we do. Okay, now, the shadow is going to go right into the mouth, or should I say the upper lip, and it's dark on the side here. But then as we come out, I'm going to make it just a little bit lighter. And again, it's still going to be somewhat, I don't know what you call it, lavender. Let's call that lavender. My painting, I can call it anything I want. There. And then there, the end of her lip. And then I want to get that cast shadow that her upper lip is casting over her lower lip. All I'm doing now is I'm darkening it. There we go. And that comes all, oh, and there's a shadow below her lower lip right there. And I want to join this. I don't want that island of light. It's all one cast shadow. Excuse me. There we go. And then her entire chin is in shadow. Well, not. There's a little bit of light in it. So I'm going to put a border right here, but everything else goes into shadow. Or at least a dark, well, it is a shadow. It's a darker area of the face. Again, doesn't matter what you call it, I'm following the value pattern. Let's go right into the neck here. Okay, I'm going to add a little more dark here with the cheek area. I need a little more warmth, so I'm going to take some, just put in a little bit of yellow. You may want to paint with the least amount of strokes, but your strokes have to have a purpose. Okay. And then just a little bit of yellow here. Okay. That's looking good. I'm going to pull off a little paint here because there is some reflection bouncing off the lower part of her chin. There we go. I'm getting a little bit of a holiday here. I said in the first video I love holidays, but sometimes I don't. And that was a place where I didn't want a holiday. Okay, now I've got to let that dry. The only other thing I see that I need to do is get some of this yellow to define right up to the lower lip, to define her lower lip. There we go. Now it's a little mushy in here, but I'm going to let that dry. I know I can come back and define that later. Now what I could do, however, is I could get my Cool Red, and it's very buttery, and I'm going to put just a little bit of an indication of a nostril right there, and then I'm going to deepen the shadow right here, and I think that's enough. Now I want to go back to the eyes. I'm going to dip into butter again. I'm dipping into pure phthalo blue, and right now you're not seeing this. I'm putting a little more phthalo blue on my palette. You don't want to try and work from a half-empty palette. You want to have lots of paint on it. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to darken. That's the pupil area. Right there and right there. Oh yeah, look at those. I really think that starts to liven up the eye. And then another thing that will liven up the eye is delineating that outer ring of the iris. So just a little bit there. There. Oh, and then I've got to do the her eyelid on the other side. So that starts right here. It goes up a little. There. And I'm going to just add a little more dark here on the eyebrow. Remember, the painting tells you what to do. Okay, now let's get those eyelashes back a little stronger. There we go. And she has some eyelashes on this side, but if I have time, I don't want this video second part to be too long and too detailed. I may use a white pen, because her eyelashes on that, why am I using a white pen? Because her eyelashes on that side are reflecting some white light. Now I'm making that a little darker. Her lower lid, there. And I'm going to also bring down some value here. And that is actually designating her, the lower, I call it eyelid on this eye. And then I want to blend this a little more. Just blend that all out. Look at that. Watercolor is the definition. My favorite definition is when you watercolor, you are controlling the flood. Wow, almost done. I don't think that mouth is dry, so I better not go back in there. What I can do now, though, is delineate the necklace a little more. So there are holes in the necklace between the links. And you know, you don't have to get too fussy. Now, this hole is a little more elliptical. We see just a bit of a hole here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Now here, the hole is bigger, the shape. Remember, we're not painting a necklace. We're not painting a face. We are concentrating on painting shapes. As soon as you name something that you're painting, that's going to get in your way of creating a successful painting, because you're thinking about the name and not thinking about what you should be thinking about. Things like contours, angles, shapes. Get that just a little bit darker. It's still wet. Wow, that's taking a long, long time to dry. Let's get a little orange in there too. Just a little bit of orange in places. There we go. Okay, I've got to be very careful. In fact, I should talk to myself. David, be careful, because you're going to overdo it. You are going to overpaint it, and you're not going to be happy. Okay. I think I'll stop. A few little errant pieces of hair. I'm going to get it just a little bit darker. There. It is so easy. And you know, I've got to really watch myself right now. It's so easy to overwork. And it's sad when you do it. It's very sad when you do that. Okay, so I'm stopping. I'm stopping at that part of the hair. I'm going to go back to this part. I want to make this a little darker, and it's dry now, so that's cool. There. And let's put a little bit more there. A little here and here. Okay, stop it, David. Stop, 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 stop. You're getting towards the red line, and you don't want to go past the red line. That's not a good deal. Okay, now back to the mouth. Now, I'm developing a deep purple. I did it with a cool red, you know, like an alizarin red, and my phthalo blue. That gives me a nice deep purple. Because where the upper lip and the lower lip meet, and you'll see this, look at people. The upper lip is rolling into the mouth, the lower lip is rolling into the mouth, and where they meet, you've got a dark area where the light's not getting. There, look at that. Look how I'm separating the upper and lower lip. I love doing this. There. I want to get a little darker on this side of the upper lip. Wow, that's almost there. And then she has a little bit of a crease here. And then I can come back with this deep violet. And just a little touch right here. That's going to define that lower lip. Okay, I'm going to a little bit more shadow here. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to stop that. I'm looking at her. I'm looking at, and I'm referring to the eye. There's a little bit of a dark area there, and I think I can. Gotta be careful. Darken this a little bit more and make that eye just a little bit bigger. Okay, I got some. So with that dark paint is still on my brush, I want to make sure this neck is dry now, or at least fairly dry. Yeah, there we go. That's not bad. There. I am defining her neckline, and I'm going to take some more of the violet. And there's a dark area right here underneath her neck. And that is also helping to define her jawline. That's what I'm trying to come up with, jawline. And also I'm defining, you can see I'm defining the edges of her chain necklace. That's traveling, so I'll take a somewhat of a thirsty brush and minimize that. I want to get a little more purple. Overall, I'm darkening the neck, especially the front here, but as you head towards the back edge, it gets a little bit lighter, and I can even put a little bit of yellow in here, like that. That's that yellow coming from the background. Okay, you know, I'm looking at this now and evaluating it. I'm almost done. What I do want to do, though, I like the pencil, the initial pencil sketch to show, but these little dash lines that I don't want those there anymore. They're distracting, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, now here we have a little bit of a hard edge. This is defining the jawline, but right here there's a blend. So that's important. Okay, I'm going to get this a little bit darker. There we go. Now, what color do I want the chain to be? Well, what the heck? It's a yellowish background, right? Maybe add a little phthalo to give it a green cast, and let's just go in there and just add some yellow. You know, it's a silver chain, so it's reflecting light like crazy. Let's just add some yellow. Don't want it too dark, so with a thirsty brush now. Boy, I sure do use that thirsty brush a lot, don't I? But it's handy. It's a definitely a good trick to know in your watercolor bag o' tricks. I don't want too much stark white showing in that necklace. There we go. One other thing I like to do, and you know, we'll see if this comes out all right. But I take chances. I'm working on a quarter sheet. I can always do another one. I'm gonna just do a flick of paint like that. Oh, I like that right there. Okay, so now it's time for final touch-ups. A little bit more red here. Now that was very thick. So with a wet brush, I'll move it around, lighten that up. So, you know, that represents the tear duct. Oh, and also, I am noticing that I've got to swing around her lower lid, right around the white of her eyes, right here. There we go. And I just want to get it a little bit darker there. I don't like this straight line, so I'm going to pull some of that off. Blend this area a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to call that a done deal. I'm going to put so you remember that you can paint with single brushes. You can paint with a flat brush or round brush, or in this case, you can paint with a cat's tongue. And you know what? And I would come back maybe in an hour or two, or maybe even tomorrow, evaluate it, look at it with fresh eyes, and decide if there are any other minor things I would want to do to make this a more satisfying painting. Or I may come back and say, hey, you know what? You done good, David. Let's call it a day with this painting. So look for and I'll be making an announcement on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on my newsletter. I'll be making an announcement when my website is up for California Vibe Watercolor Portraiture video lessons. So I'll let you know. It may take about another week. Please be patient. But meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed part 1 and part 2 of this painting sequence. Thank you. Shelter in place and do art. Bye-bye.